12 years of marriage, 3 years of lies, one security camera that changed everything. When I saw my husband with another woman at the mall, I had two choices: break down or fight back. I chose a third option, one he never saw coming, one that would cost him everything: his job, his friends, his sanity. My name is Ellie Vance, and I want to tell you about the day my husband died. Not in a hospital, not in an accident, not in any way that would show up on a death certificate. He died in my heart on a random Tuesday afternoon, while he was still breathing, while he was still smiling, while he was still coming home to me every night and kissing my cheek like nothing was wrong. I was 34 years old when it happened. I had been married to Mark for 11 years, together for 12. We met in college at a stupid party where the beer was warm and the music was too loud. He was standing by the window, looking out at the rain, and I walked up to him and said something dumb about the weather. He turned and smiled, and I remember thinking, right then, that I wanted to see that smile every day for the rest of my life. And I did. For 12 years, I saw that smile. I saw it on our wedding day when I walked down the aisle in my mother's lace dress. I saw it in the hospital when we found out we couldn't have children, and he held my hand and said it didn't matter because we had each other. I saw it on quiet Sunday mornings when we made pancakes and read the newspaper in our pajamas like an old married couple, even though we were still young. That smile was my home. It was the place I ran to when the world got hard, the light I followed when everything else went dark. I built my entire life around that smile, and all the while, it was a lie. The Tuesday it all fell apart started like any other. Mark was supposed to be in Chicago for a 3-day sales conference. I packed his bag the night before, the way I always did, folding his shirts just the way he liked them, slipping a little note into his suitcase like I had done since our first anniversary. "Have fun," it said. "Come back to me soon. I love you." He kissed me goodbye at the door that morning. It was a real kiss, not just a peck on the cheek. He held my face in his hands and looked into my eyes and said, "I'll call you tonight." "I love you, Ellie." And I believed him. I always believed him. The house was too quiet after he left. That was the worst part of his trips, the silence. We didn't have kids, so it was just me and the dog, a lazy golden retriever named Gus, who spent most of the day sleeping in a patch of sunlight on the living room floor. I worked from home as a graphic designer, so my days were spent in front of a computer screen, lost in fonts and colors and client revisions. By mid-afternoon, I was restless. The kind of restless that makes your skin itch and your mind wander. I had finished my work early, and the house felt too small, too empty, too quiet. I decided to go to the mall, just to walk around. Maybe buy a new lipstick or a book I didn't need. Something to break the monotony. I didn't know I was walking toward the end of my life. The mall was busy for a Tuesday. Moms with strollers, teenagers cutting class, old couples walking hand in hand. I wandered through a bookstore first, running my fingers along the spines of novels I'd never read. Then I went to a kitchen store and looked at fancy pots I'd never buy. It was mindless, pleasant, completely forgettable. After about an hour, my feet started to ache. I decided to head home. I took the escalator down to the first floor, my mind already on what to make for dinner. Something simple, maybe pasta. Mark wouldn't be home, so it didn't matter. I stepped off the escalator and started walking toward the exit. And then I heard a voice. "Excuse me, miss?" I turned. It was a security guard, an older man with a kind face and gray hair showing under his uniform cap. He was standing by the information kiosk, holding one of those small handheld monitors they use to watch the security feeds. He looked uncomfortable, like he was about to say something he knew he shouldn't. "Yes," I said, annoyed at the delay. He took a step closer, and I saw pity in his eyes. Pity for me, a stranger he had never met. That should have been my first warning. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his voice soft. "But I was watching the feeds, and I saw something. And then I saw you walking by, and I thought maybe you should know." He held up the screen. "Is that your husband?" The world stopped. I looked at the grainy black and white image. It showed a man and a woman on the second floor, near the food court. The man had his back mostly to the camera, but his profile was clear. Broad shoulders, dark hair, thick and neatly cut, a navy blue blazer and khakis. The exact outfit Mark had worn to the airport that morning. The woman with him was young, much younger than me. She had long, light hair that fell in waves down her back. She was wearing a sundress, something flowy and feminine, the kind of thing I used to wear before I got comfortable, before I settled into sensible jeans and plain shirts. She was looking up at him, laughing at something he said, and even in the grainy footage you could see it. The way she looked at him, the way she adored him, and Mark, my Mark. He had his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. It was a small gesture, unconscious, intimate. The kind of touch that happens between two people who have been together for a long time, who know each other's bodies, who belong to each other. My heart didn't just break. It stopped. It froze in my chest like a block of ice, and for one long, terrible second, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I could only stare at that screen and watch my husband live a life I knew nothing about. "Ma'am," the guard said. "Are you okay? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said anything. It's none of my business. I thought you should know." I looked at him, this stranger named Frank according to his name tag, and I saw that his eyes were wet. He was genuinely upset, genuinely sorry for what he had done. He had no idea that he had just detonated a bomb in the middle of my life. "Can you?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Can you show me more?" He hesitated, then nodded. He led me behind the kiosk to a small office cluttered with monitors and empty coffee cups. He sat down at the main console and started scrolling through the footage. I watched my husband's secret life unfold in grainy black and white. There he was, buying popcorn at the concession stand, holding the bucket out to her like an offering. There they were, sitting at a small table in the food court, sharing fries, touching hands across the table. There they were, walking into a department store and coming out 20 minutes later, her cheeks flushed, his shirt untucked, the kind of disheveled that only comes from one thing. Frank froze the frame on a clear shot of them walking past a different camera. The woman turned her head, and I saw her face for the first time. She was beautiful, not in a fake, plastic way, but in a real, natural way. She had the kind of face that made you want to be her friend, that made you trust her instantly. She was looking up at Mark with an expression of pure, unguarded happiness, the kind of happiness that comes from believing you are loved. And Mark, he was looking at her the way he used to look at me. The way he looked at me on our wedding day, on our honeymoon, in those first few years when everything was new and exciting and we couldn't keep our hands off each other. That look had faded over time, replaced by comfortable familiarity, by the easy affection of a long marriage. I thought that was normal. I thought that was what happened after 11 years, but it wasn't normal. It was just me. He still had that look, he just didn't have it for me anymore. "How long?" I whispered. "Can you see how long they've been here?" Frank scrolled back. 2 hours. They had been at the mall for 2 hours. 2 hours of holding hands and sharing food and sneaking into department store dressing rooms. 2 hours of living a life that had nothing to do with me. I thought about my morning. I had woken up alone, made coffee alone, worked alone. I had eaten lunch alone, a sad sandwich at my desk while staring at a computer screen. I had felt lonely and restless and bored, and all the while my husband was 2 miles away, living his best life with another woman. The unfairness of it hit me like a physical blow. I doubled over, clutching my stomach, sure I was going to be sick. Frank was there instantly, his hand on my shoulder, his voice full of concern. "Ma'am, let me call someone. Let me call security. We can have them removed." I shook my head. I couldn't speak. I couldn't explain that I didn't want them removed. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want to be the hysterical wife screaming in a public place while her husband looked at her with shame and pity. I didn't know what I wanted. I just knew I had to get out of there. I straightened up, took a deep breath, and looked Frank in the eyes. "Thank you," I said, "for telling me. You did the right thing." And then I walked out of that office, out of the mall, and into the parking lot where my sensible Honda CR-V was waiting for me. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, staring at nothing, while the sun went down and the parking lot lights flickered on one by one. My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Finally, I pulled it out. Mark, a text message. "Hey you, long day of meetings. Grabbing dinner with the team from the Chicago office. Talk tomorrow. Love you. Love you." He loved me. He loved me so much that he was texting me from the food court of our local mall while his girlfriend sat across from him, probably licking ice cream from a cone, probably laughing at something funny on his phone. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just looked at that message, at those 3 words, and felt something inside me shift, something fundamental, something that would never shift back. I drove home in a daze. The house was dark and quiet when I got there, just the way I had left it. Gus greeted me at the door, his tail wagging, his big brown eyes full of love. I knelt down and hugged him, burying my face in his warm fur, and for the first time since I saw that screen, I let myself feel. The tears came then. Great, heaving sobs that shook my whole body. I cried on the floor of my entryway, holding my dog, while the house echoed with the silence of a life that had just been revealed as a complete and total lie. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark living room, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the wall, thinking about every late night at work, every sudden business trip, every time Mark seemed distracted or distant. I had explained it all away. Work stress, fatigue, the natural ebb and flow of a long marriage. I had trusted him completely, and he had used that trust as a shield to hide a whole other life. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. I wasn't going to cry and scream and give him the chance to lie his way out of it. I was going to find out everything. I was going to know the full scope of the betrayal before I decided what to do next. I called in sick to work. Then I went into Mark's home office, the room he always kept locked when he traveled. I had a key. I'd had it for years, but I'd never used it because I trusted him. That felt like a cruel joke now. The office was neat and organized just like Mark. A desk, a computer, filing cabinets. I went straight for the computer. It was password protected. I tried our anniversary, his birthday, our dog's name. Nothing worked. Then I thought of something. I typed in the name of his favorite band from college, an obscure group he'd loved since before we met. The screen unlocked. My heart was pounding as I started clicking. I went through his emails first. Nothing in his main inbox, nothing in his sent folder. It was too clean, too empty. That was suspicious in itself. Then I found a folder labeled Work Chicago. Inside were emails to an address I didn't recognize. The name attached was CG. I opened the oldest email I could find. It was dated 3 years ago. 3 years. The affair had been going on for 3 years. Can't wait to see you tomorrow, the email read. Same place, same time. I've been counting the days. I kept reading, scrolling through years of messages. They were mostly logistical, arranging meetings, confirming times, sharing hotel room numbers. But every once in a while, there was something more. Something that made my stomach turn. I love you. I've never felt this way before. You make me feel alive. I think about you every second. The words were addressed to CG, but they were written by my husband. My husband, who told me he loved me every night before bed. My husband, who held my hand at my mother's funeral and whispered that everything would be okay. My husband, who had been lying to me for 3 entire years. I found his cloud storage next. There were folders of photos. One was simply labeled Lake. I clicked on it, and there she was. The woman from the mall. Her name, I now knew, was Chloe. Chloe in a bikini on a dock. Chloe reading a book on a porch swing. Chloe asleep in a bed, the sheets tangled around her bare shoulders, a peaceful smile on her face. And in so many of them, Mark, his arm around her, his lips on her cheek. His eyes full of that look I thought I had lost forever. I scrolled through hundreds of photos, my tears falling silently onto the keyboard. They had a life together, a real life. Vacations and lazy Sundays and inside jokes. They had everything I thought we had, except it was newer and shinier and more exciting. I found a scan lease agreement. An apartment 45 minutes from our house. 2 names on the lease. Chloe Grace Mitchell and Mark Allen Vance. He had signed it. My husband had signed a lease on an apartment with another woman. I closed the computer and sat in the dark, my mind reeling. 3 years, a whole other home, a whole other life. And me, stupid trusting me, making his breakfast and doing his laundry and believing every lie that came out of his mouth. The rage came then. Not the hot, screaming rage of a woman in shock. A cold, quiet, deadly rage that settled into my bones and made itself at home. I didn't want to cry anymore. I didn't want to hurt. I wanted to make him pay. I spent the next week watching. Learning, becoming a ghost in my own life and in theirs. I followed Chloe from a distance, learning her routine, her habits, her world. She was a yoga instructor at a small studio downtown. She was 26 years old. She had a tiny apartment with plants on every windowsill and a rescue cat named Machi. She was sweet and kind and genuinely lovely, and she had no idea the man she loved went home to another woman every night. That knowledge should have made me pity her. Instead, it made my plan clearer. She was innocent, yes, but she was also the instrument of my destruction, whether she knew it or not, and I would use that. I started with small things. I found out where she bought her coffee, and I started going there at the same time, just to watch her from across the room. I learned her schedule, her favorite yoga class, the park where she walked on weekends. I became an expert on Chloe Mitchell without her ever knowing I existed. Meanwhile, I played the perfect wife at home. I made Mark his favorite dinners. I asked about his day. I kissed him goodbye in the mornings and welcomed him home at night. I smiled and laughed and acted like nothing was wrong, and every second of it was like swallowing glass. But I did it. I did it because I needed time. I needed to plan. And plan I did. Mark's greatest weakness was his reputation. He cared more about what people thought of him than almost anything else. His job, his friends, his place in the community, his image as a successful, devoted husband, these things were the foundation of his identity. If I could take that away, piece by piece, I could destroy him without ever raising my voice. Phase 1 was his work. Mark was a sales director for a medical supply company. It was a job that required trust, both from his employers and his clients. Over the years, I had overheard things during his late-night work calls. Little things, a deal that wasn't quite above board, numbers that had been massaged to look better than they were, promises made to clients that couldn't be kept. I had never said anything because I loved him and I trusted that he knew what he was doing. Now, I had a use for that information. I wrote letters, not emails, not texts, but real letters printed on plain paper with no return address. I sent them to his boss, to the human resources department, to his 3 biggest clients. I didn't mention the affair. That was personal, this was business. I simply presented facts. Dates, figures, details that only someone very close to him would know. I let them draw their own conclusions. I mailed the letters from a mailbox across town, wearing gloves, watching over my shoulder like a character in a spy movie. When the last one slid into the slot, I felt a thrill run through me. It was the first time since the mall that I had felt anything other than pain. Phase 2 was his friends. Mark had a tight circle of buddies from college, men he had known for 20 years. They golfed together, drank together, shared secrets together. They thought Mark was the greatest guy in the world, and their admiration meant everything to him. I knew their wives. I had spent countless evenings with these women, making small talk at dinner parties, sharing recipes at barbecues, listening to them complain about their husbands while I smiled and nodded. Now, I started meeting them for coffee. One by one, I took them aside and planted seeds. I never said a bad word about Mark. I just looked sad. I sighed at the wrong moments. When they asked if everything was okay, I hesitated just long enough to make them wonder, then forced a smile and changed the subject. I let their imaginations do the work for me. It took about a month, but the whispers started. I heard them at a party, women talking in the kitchen, while their husbands grilled steaks in the backyard. Have you noticed how sad Ellie looks lately? I heard Mark's been working late a lot. Someone said he's been acting strange. The men heard it too. I saw the way they looked at Mark differently, the way the laughter stopped when he walked into a room, the way the invitations became less frequent. Mark noticed. I could see it in his eyes, the confusion, the hurt, the dawning realization that something was wrong. He started coming home earlier, trying harder, being more present. He brought me flowers. He asked about my day. He tried to be the husband he should have been all along. It was too little, too late, and it was also perfect. The pressure was building, and he had no idea where it was coming from. Phase 3 was the hardest. I had to make him believe he was losing his mind. I started small. I moved his keys from the hook where he always left them. I hid his phone under the couch cushions. I changed the passwords on streaming services he used every night. Little things that could be explained away as forgetfulness or bad luck. Then I escalated. I sent text messages to his phone from numbers he didn't recognize. Messages that said things like, "I know what you did," or "She deserves to know the truth," or "You can't hide forever." I called his office and hung up when he answered. I made him paranoid, made him jump at shadows, made him wonder who was watching him. He started drinking. Not openly, but secretly in his home office late at night. I would hear the clink of the bottle, the soft curse when he thought no one was listening. He stopped eating. He lost weight. His eyes became hollow, haunted. He looked at me sometimes with something like desperation, like he wanted to confess, to unburden himself, but he didn't know how. And I, the wife who should have been his refuge, just looked back at him with the same tired, sad eyes I had been practicing for months. One night, he came to bed late, long after I was pretending to sleep. I felt him lie down beside me, felt his hand reach for mine in the dark. He held my hand for a long time, and I could hear him breathing, could feel the tension in his body. I knew he was on the edge of confessing. I knew because I had pushed him there. But he didn't confess. Not that night. He just held my hand and whispered, "I'm sorry, Ellie. I'm so sorry." And then he rolled over and went to sleep, leaving me wide awake in the dark, wondering what he was sorry for. Wondering if he was sorry for the affair, or sorry for getting caught, or just sorry for himself. It didn't matter. The confession would come. I just had to wait. While I was dismantling Mark's world piece by piece, I was also watching Chloe. I couldn't stop. She was like a character in a movie, someone I was obsessed with understanding. I watched her teach her yoga classes, her body moving with a grace I had never possessed. I watched her buy groceries, carefully selecting organic vegetables and fancy cheese. I watched her laugh with friends at outdoor cafes, her head thrown back, her joy so genuine it hurt to see. She had no idea I existed. She had no idea that her happiness was built on the wreckage of my marriage. She was just living her life, loving a man who lied to her every single day, just like he lied to me. I started to feel something for her, not the pity I had expected, and not the hatred I thought I deserved to feel. Something else, something complicated. She was young and beautiful and full of life, and she had been sucked into Mark's web just like I had been years ago. She was a victim too, even if she didn't know it yet. But that didn't change my plan. If anything, it made me more determined. She deserved to know the truth. She deserved to see the real Mark, not the charming, attentive boyfriend he pretended to be. And I was going to make sure she saw it. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. I was at a coffee shop near her apartment one afternoon, sitting in the corner with a book I wasn't reading, when she walked in. She was alone, which was unusual. She ordered a latte and sat at a table near the window, pulling out her phone. She looked upset. Her eyes were red, her shoulders slumped. She kept wiping at her face with a napkin. I watched her for a long time, and then, before I could stop myself, I got up and walked over to her. "Excuse me," I said, my voice soft. "Are you okay?" She looked up, startled. Her eyes were indeed red, her cheeks wet. She tried to smile, but it came out wrong. "I'm fine, just having a rough day." I sat down across from her without asking. It was bold, risky, completely insane. But something in me needed to be close to her, needed to understand her, needed to look into the eyes of the woman who had taken my husband and see what was there. "I'm Ellie," I said. "Chloe," she replied. And just like that, we were talking. She told me she was having boyfriend troubles. She didn't give details, just that she was confused, that she didn't know if she could trust him, that she felt like something was wrong but couldn't prove it. I listened, nodded, made sympathetic noises. Inside, my heart was racing. This was it. This was the opening I needed. I didn't befriend her. I didn't play games with her emotions. I just listened, and I let her talk, and I filed away every piece of information she gave me. Her fears, her doubts, her suspicions, they would all be useful later. Over the next few weeks, I ran into her again and again. Always by accident, always in places I knew she would be. We became coffee shop acquaintances, then something more. She started to trust me, to confide in me, to see me as a friend. And I let her, even though every conversation was a knife in my heart. Because the truth was, I liked her. I really, truly liked her. She was kind and funny and genuine, everything I would have wanted in a friend in another life. And that made everything harder, and easier, and more complicated than I could have imagined. The night it all came crashing down was a Thursday. Mark had been acting strange all week, jumpy and distracted, drinking more than usual. I knew he was close to breaking. I just didn't know when. I was in the kitchen making dinner, the same dinners I had always made, the same routines we had always followed. Spaghetti and meatballs, his favorite. The sauce was bubbling on the stove, filling the house with the smell of garlic and tomatoes. Gus was sleeping in his usual spot, a patch of sunlight on the living room floor. Everything was normal. Everything was exactly as it had always been. Then Mark walked in. He was early, hours early. He stood in the doorway and just watched me for a long time. When I finally turned around, I saw that he was crying. Silent tears running down a face I barely recognized anymore. He looked old, broken, defeated. "Ellie," he said, his voice breaking, "I need to tell you something." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just looked at him, this stranger I had once loved with my whole heart, and waited. He told me everything. He told me about Chloe. He told me about the 3 years. He told me about the apartment, the lies, the double life. He told me he was sorry, that he loved me, that he would do anything to make it right. He told me that Chloe had broken up with him that afternoon, that she had found out somehow, that she had called him a liar and a monster, and told him never to contact her again. He fell to his knees in our kitchen, sobbing like a child, while the spaghetti sauce bubbled on the stove behind him. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not relief. Nothing. When he finished, when the last apology had left his lips and he sat there waiting for my response, I did something he never expected. I walked to the counter, opened a drawer, and pulled out a thick folder I had prepared weeks earlier. I walked back to him and dropped it on the floor in front of his knees. He looked at it, confused. Then he opened it. Inside were copies of everything. Every letter I had sent to his boss, his clients, his friends. Every text from the burner phone. Every note I had made while watching him, tracking him, documenting his every move. Photographs of him and Chloe, some I had taken myself, some I had printed from his own cloud storage. Copies of the lease for the apartment. Printouts of their emails. Evidence of 3 years of lies, all gathered in one place, all presented to him by the wife he had betrayed. He read. He turned page after page, his hands shaking, his face growing paler with each revelation. And I watched the confusion slowly turn to horror as he realized what he was holding. "You," he whispered, looking up at me with eyes that finally, truly saw me for the first time in years. "It was you, the letters, the calls, everything, it was you." I nodded. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just nodded. He scrambled to his feet, backing away from me until he hit the kitchen counter. He looked at me like I was something dangerous, something inhuman. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "What have you become?" I looked at him, this broken man on his knees in my kitchen, and I told him the truth. "I am what you made me, Mark. You had a wife who loved you. You had a life that most people dream about. And you threw it away for secret smiles and cheap thrills with a girl young enough to be your daughter. You didn't just break my heart. You broke my trust in everything. You made me believe that love is a lie. You made me into someone capable of this." I gestured at the folder, at the evidence of my careful, methodical destruction of his life. "So yes, I took everything from you. Your job, they're watching you now, waiting for you to slip. Your friends, they whisper about you behind your back. Your peace of mind, gone because you'll never know who else might be watching, who else might be waiting to destroy you. And now, your confession. You gave it to me freely, on your knees, thinking I would forgive you. But I won't, Mark, I will never forgive you." He tried to reach for me, to touch my hand, to bridge the impossible distance between us. I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "The divorce papers will be delivered tomorrow. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I want nothing from you except your absence from my life. You can have Chloe. You can have your freedom. But you will never have another moment of my time, another word of my forgiveness, another second of my love." I walked out of the kitchen. I walked out of our house. I got in my car and I drove away, leaving him there on the floor of the home we had built together. I drove for hours. Through the night, through the darkness, until the sun came up over a horizon I had never seen before. I stopped at a small motel in a town I couldn't name, and I sat on the edge of a strange bed in a strange room, and I finally let myself cry. I cried for the girl I used to be, the one who believed in forever. I cried for the marriage that died long before I knew it was sick. I cried for the years I would never get back, the laughter that was never real, the love that was never enough. I cried for Chloe, who had loved a liar and lost him. I cried for Mark, who had thrown away everything good in his life for something that never really existed. And when the tears were finally gone, when there was nothing left inside me but empty space, I made a promise to myself. I would heal. I would learn to trust again, someday. I would build a new life from the ruins of the old one. But I would never, ever forget what it felt like to be made a fool by the person who was supposed to protect me. And I would never again let anyone have that kind of power over my heart. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I got the house, the car, everything I asked for. Mark didn't fight me. He didn't have the strength. His job was gone, his reputation in ruins, his friends distant and suspicious. He was alone, truly alone, for the first time in his life. I saw him one last time, outside the courthouse on the day the divorce was final. He looked old, broken, defeated. He called my name as I walked to my car, and I stopped but didn't turn around. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know it doesn't matter, but I'm sorry." I stood there for a moment, feeling the sun on my face, feeling the weight of everything I had carried for so long. Then I got in my car and drove away without looking back. Some apologies come too late. Some wounds never fully heal. And some women, the ones who survive the worst betrayals, walk away and never look back. A year passed. I moved to a small town on the coast, far from the suburbs where my marriage had died. I bought a little house with a porch and a garden, and I filled it with books and plants and the quiet peace of a life lived alone. Gus came with me, of course, and we spent our evenings watching the sunset over the water, just the two of us. I thought about Mark sometimes, about Chloe, about the choices that had led us all to that terrible place. I wondered if he was okay, if he had found a way to rebuild his life. I wondered if she had healed, if she had found someone worthy of her love. I wondered if I would ever stop wondering. And then, one day, I got a letter. It was handwritten on plain white paper with no return address. The postmark was from my old town, the one I had left behind. I opened it with trembling hands, not knowing what to expect. "Dear Ellie, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if you'll ever want to hear from me again, but I need to write it anyway. I need to say the things I should have said a long time ago. I was wrong. I was so wrong, and I'm so sorry. Not just for the affair, but for everything. For lying to you for 3 years. For making you feel like you weren't enough. For destroying your trust and your peace and your happiness. For turning you into someone capable of the kind of revenge you took. I'm not angry about what you did. I deserved it. Every letter, every whisper, every moment of paranoia and fear. I deserved all of it and more. I broke you, Ellie. I broke you in ways I didn't understand until it was too late. I've been going to therapy. I've been trying to understand why I did what I did, why I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't have answers yet. Maybe I never will. But I'm trying. I'm trying to become someone worthy of the love you gave me for so many years. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you at all. I just wanted you to know that I know. I know what I did. I know who I was. And I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. If you never want to hear from me again, I understand that too." Mark, I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer with other things I didn't know what to do with. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. So incredibly tired, I never wrote back. Another year passed. I had built a good life for myself. I had friends, real friends, who didn't know about my past. I had a job I loved, designing book covers for a small publishing house. I had a garden that bloomed every spring and a dog who still greeted me every day with unconditional love. I was happy. Or at least, I was content. The sharp edges of my pain had worn smooth over time, leaving only a dull ache that I had learned to live with. Then I got a phone call. It was Chloe. I don't know how she found my number. I don't know why she called. But her voice on the other end of the line was the same as I remembered, soft and warm and a little bit sad. "Ellie," she said, "I need to see you." We met at a coffee shop halfway between our towns. She looked older, more tired, but still beautiful in that effortless way she had. She was pregnant, I noticed immediately, her belly round and full under a soft sweater. "I'm getting married," she said without preamble. "To a good man, a really good man. He knows about everything, about Mark, about you. He loves me anyway." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her touch was warm, gentle. "I wanted you to know," she said, "that I don't blame you for any of it. I was angry at first when I found out who you were, what you had done. But then I thought about it. I thought about what it must have been like for you, finding out the way you did, living with that pain for so long. And I realized that we were both victims. We both loved the same liar. We both got hurt. Tears were streaming down my face. I couldn't stop them. "I'm not saying what you did was right," she continued, "but I understand it, and I forgive you. I hope you can forgive yourself someday." She squeezed my hand, then let go. She stood up, smiled at me one last time, and walked out of the coffee shop. I watched her go, watched her get into a car driven by a man with kind eyes and a gentle smile, watched them drive away together into a future I would never be part of. And for the first time in years, I felt something like peace. My name is Ellie Vance. I am 41 years old. I live in a small house by the sea with my dog and my garden and my memories. I have friends who love me and a job that fulfills me and a life that is mine, truly mine, for the first time. I still think about that Tuesday at the mall. About Frank, the security guard who changed my life with a single question. About the look on Mark's face when he realized what I had done. About Chloe's hand in mine, offering forgiveness I didn't deserve. I don't know if revenge was worth it. I don't know if the satisfaction of watching him fall was worth the person I became to make it happen. I don't know if I'm a hero or a villain or just a woman who was pushed too far and broke in ways she didn't expect. What I know is this: I survived. I walked through fire and came out the other side. I am scarred and changed and sometimes still sad, but I am here. I am alive. I am still standing. And that, in the end, is enough. Some stories don't have happy endings. Some stories just have endings. This is mine. I am Ellie Vance. I am a survivor. And this is the truth of what happened to me.